So, how do you catch a ghost? And no, I'm not talking about the spooky kind. I'm talking about a digital phantom. You know, a cybercriminal who can make their clues just disappear, whose fingerprints are nothing but data. Well, that's the incredible cat and mouse game we're diving into today.
And really, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, in a world where crucial evidence can be wiped out, or hidden, or just completely scrambled with a few clicks, how on earth is justice supposed to keep up? It's this question that's at the very heart of all digital investigation.
Okay, so to really get a grip on this, you got to know the two main players in this fight. Think of it like a boxing ring. In one corner, you've got digital forensics. That's the science of finding and piecing together all those tiny digital clues. And in the other corner, anti-forensics. This is the art of making those very same clues totally disappear. It's this constant back and forth battle, offense versus defense.
All right, so first things first, we've got to understand the battlefield itself. Because in this kind of fight, the crime scene isn't some room you can just rope off with yellow tape. No, it's everywhere, scattered all across the digital world.
Yeah, forget about dusty footprints or a stray hair. The modern crime scene is really just a huge collection of what the experts call ephemeral data. We're talking bits and bytes, tiny digital fragments spread all over hard drives, networks, even cloud servers. So the investigator's job? It's basically to take all this digital dust and somehow piece it back together into a story that makes sense.
Okay, so let's switch gears. If you're the one trying to stay invisible, how do you do it? Well, you've got a whole toolbox of tricks, what we call anti-forensics. Let's break down the three main strategies they use: destruction, concealment, and good old-fashioned deception.
You know, when you hit delete on a file, it's not really gone. The computer just kind of forgets where it is. That's why criminals use these really sophisticated tools to actually wipe the data by writing over it again and again with junk. But an even smarter move? Do the crime inside a virtual machine, basically a disposable computer. Once they're done, they just delete the whole thing, and they hope the entire crime scene just vanishes right along with it.
But here's the thing. Just destroying evidence can be kind of obvious. It leaves a mark. So a more subtle way to go is concealment. The one you've probably heard of is encryption, right? Scrambling everything so it's just unreadable gibberish. A much sneakier trick is using something called a rootkit. This is malware that buries itself so deep inside the operating system, it's almost invisible. But honestly, the cleverest trick of all, it's hiding right out in the open.
And this is where things get really cool. It's a technique called steganography. It's literally the art of hiding data inside another file that looks totally innocent. So an investigator might be looking at a completely normal picture of a cat, right? But secretly, hidden in the data of that very image is a whole list of stolen passwords. The evidence is literally staring them in the face, and they'd never know. All right, the final strategy in the criminal's playbook is all about deception and misdirection. They use things like anonymizing networks, Tor is the famous one, to bounce their internet signal all over the planet, making it almost impossible to trace where they are. They can even change a file's timestamp, they call it time stomping, or mess with system logs to create a totally fake timeline. It's like building the perfect digital alibi. Okay, that is a serious set of tools for the bad guys. So how in the world do investigators fight back against an enemy they can't even see? Well, it turns out they have their own arsenal, their own set of countermoves designed to flip every single one of those criminal tricks right on its head. So the criminal wipes a drive, right? They think, great, the evidence is gone. But the investigator's countermove is advanced data recovery. See, even the absolute best wiping tools can leave behind these tiny, microscopic traces of data. And you better believe investigators have the tools to find those little digital ghosts.
Next move. The criminal encrypts a hard drive, locking it down completely. The counter to that? It's called a brute force attack. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's the digital version of a battering ram, a program that just sits there guessing millions, even billions of password combinations a second until, crack, the lock breaks. It can take a long time, but with enough power, it's basically unstoppable.
Okay, what about that virtual machine trick? The criminal deletes it, thinking the whole crime scene just vanished. But this is where investigators pull out a secret weapon, memory forensics. Here's the brilliant part. They don't even look at the hard drive. Nope. They look at the computer's live memory, its RAM, where all these little traces of what just happened are still lingering, kind of like an afterimage burned into your vision.
So here's how it works, and it's super clever. An investigator literally takes a snapshot of the computer's active memory at that exact moment. And that data, which disappears when you turn the computer off, is an absolute treasure trove. By digging through it, they can find things like passwords, programs that were running, even pieces of files that were never even saved to the hard drive. They can pull out evidence the criminal was absolutely positive was gone forever.
And finally, what about those anonymizing networks that hide a criminal's location? The countermove here is something called network packet analysis. Now, this is really hard to do, but by looking at the patterns of the data traffic, not the data itself, but the timing and flow, investigators can sometimes spot the one tiny anomaly, the one little hiccup that gives away the source.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean? Well, it's that there's no finish line in this game. It's not a contest with a clear winner. It's just a never-ending chase, a constant arms race between those who hide and those who seek.
You know, there's a line from the material we looked at that just sums it up perfectly. It calls it a never-ending cycle of innovation and adaptation. And that's exactly what it is. Every time a new forensic tool comes out, it just creates a new challenge for criminals to figure out a way around. And every time criminals invent a new hiding technique, it inspires a new tool to beat it.
And let's be really clear about something. This isn't just some abstract technical puzzle for geeks. The outcome of this digital cat and mouse game has huge real-world consequences. We're talking about whether someone who's been defrauded gets their money back, whether a dangerous person gets caught, or even whether a country's biggest secrets are kept safe.
Which really just leaves us with one last big question to think about. In this relentless back and forth, in this digital chase, who's really one step ahead? Is it the person who builds the new lock? Or the person who figures out how to pick it? The answer to that, well, it might just decide the whole future of justice in our digital world.